So we did not get a Fae channel at all. In fact, we just got a banner for this new Shadows of Valencia banner, but it did introduce a new type of hero, the Attuned Hero, with Peony and Triandra. Now, typically I would just do a reaction to the banner and kind of go through it as it is, but I really want to just record a different type of video and talk about these new hero unit type. Now to start off with, let's go with the example of Peony, as that's a good place to start. So essentially what these Attuned Heroes are they're a new type of hero that are similar to rearmed heroes, right? But instead of having like an arcane weapon you can inherit to your units, you get a new type of skill called an Attuned skill. And this goes into a new slot, which is designated by that X, right? So you have Attack of Echo, right, with the X slot. And what this essentially does is it gives an additional effect to units. Now this is very interesting and I'm very conflicted about it right now at the moment, right? This is my first impression though, so maybe I'll change my overall thoughts on it after I sleep on it and think about it a little more. But right now, let's kind of go over what these skills do. So you have Attack of Echo, and what this does is at start of turn, if the unit is within 2 spaces of an ally, they're going to get a visible attack +6, and they're going to get the warping effect where they can move to a space adjacent to any ally within 2 spaces for 1 turn. So it's essentially like attack speed Oath, right? But you're not getting the speed, you're only getting the attack, and you're not getting the in-combat stats. So it's like kind of like a nerfed version of that in a way. But it doesn't take up one of your slots, right? It doesn't take up your C slot, you get this new slot with it. The thing is with this, is that it is similar to how seals were originally added to the game, right? When seals were added to the game, they were like these really minor little bonuses you could get to your unit, right? Like attack +2, attack +3, quicken pulse, right? With a -1 special cooldown, stuff like that. Where it didn't like really completely change your unit's build, but it did offer them a little bit more power. And this is what this thing is doing as well. And so when it comes to these heroes, I'm like very interested to see how they turn out because they aren't exactly like rearmed heroes. They work mechanically the same, right? You can essentially like inherit this skill and then you still have the Attuned Hero left over in your barracks. So you're not losing the hero by doing this new elite inheritance is what they're calling it. And if you merge one of these Attuned Heroes, you'll get this inheritance back. So you can once again use these heroes for skill duplication or just, getting more of these Attack of Echo copies. The difference is with rearmed heroes, the arcane weapons replaced something existing on the unit already, right? You're essentially replacing their weapon with a better weapon typically, or like an alternate side grade of a weapon. But with this, you're actually giving them a new skill slot and a new skill, which means that they're actually getting more powerful, right? Like any unit who has one of these attuned skills is going to be better off than they were before not having the attuned skill, right? Now there are some restrictions, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but that's my point is like this overall makes your unit better. And for me, that's kind of, not the best feeling because it means that you really need to summon these heroes. But unlike, like let's say a seal slot where, once you get the seal slot, you have it. You have the attack +3 seal. You can now equip this on to any hero you want, and then you can kind of be flexible with it. With this one, you can only give to one hero. Once you give it to a hero, the inheritance is used, and then you need to summon another version of Peony to get more of that copy, right? To hand it out again, essentially. And so for me, I really don't like this that much as rearmed heroes, even though they do have the value that rearmed heroes have, with skill duplication and things like that. It seems a little bit more like predatory in my opinion, where they're trying to really get us to summon for skills that are unique to these heroes. And if you don't summon these heroes, you can't have that skill at all. There's no way to get it, right? Which really sucks. The other thing is just like the rearmed heroes, these are not in the normal summoning pool, meaning that you'll never just get randomly pity broken by them. You have to summon for them to get them, which is also not the best in my opinion. The other thing too is that there are some restrictions on these skills, which I think is good and bad in some ways. The thing is that heroes who have preference skills, right? Not preference weapon, but preference skill. So for example, let's say Legendary Dimitri, who has Atrocity, right? That is a unique skill only to him and it takes up his B slot. They cannot use these attuned skills alongside their preference skill. And so in this way, you can't take a unit who's really, really busted and then add even more power to them, right? Because the thing is that in Fire Emblem Heroes, the divide between a unit who had a preference weapon and a preference skill between the unit who just had a preference weapon had been kind of the gap had been widening quite a bit, in my opinion. Preference skills are just so powerful right now. And so this kind of gives a way for units without preference skills to get a little bit stronger, to kind of, make that gap a little bit smaller. But at the same time, it also limits like who can use it. So let's say your favorite heroes, like, you know, legendary Dimitri, let's say, well, he can't really take advantage of these skills, which kind of sucks. Like there's like just a whole skill slot he's not taking advantage of unless you don't want to use his preference skill, which is one of the things that makes him really unique. And so I'm not the really biggest fan of that either. I really didn't like how like rearmed weapon or arcane weapons couldn't be used alongside preference skills either. I think it kind of really sucked for like the older units, like let's say like legendary Ike, right? Legendary Ike can't use Ragnell alongside, or he can't use like an arcane sword alongside like Radiant Ether 2, which isn't even that good of a PRF skill, but like it didn't feel that great. So I'm not a big fan of that either. And so I'm in this weird position where I think these units, it's cool that they're adding this. Like it's cool that they're trying to like open up more space, right? But in the same way, they're adding more complexity to the overall kit. Now, right now, you know, Attack Oath Echo or like the Death Blow 2 Attuned skill really aren't that complex, right? It's attack +4 or like a visible bonus. But in the future, it will be. Like, let's all be honest. Like, there's going to be power creep with these skills. They're going to get more powerful. And it's going to be another thing you're going to have to consider when you're going into, you know, like matchups and stuff. What skill am I giving up? How do they have more stats than me, right? There's so much stuff to consider. And so I'm kind of scared that this will add some more complexity creep to the game, which, you know, Fire Emblem Heroes is already a very complex game. So I'm nervous about that, and I'm also just nervous that we have to summon these heroes now, right? This is a new way for them to get us to summon even more. So now there's Ascended Heroes for florets, there's Rearmed Heroes for arcane weapons, now there's Attuned Heroes for attuned skills. There's just so much. Legendary Heroes for, you know, arena or like stuff like that, and like Mythic Heroes for ether raids. There's just so many things. Duo skills, duo units, you get it, like harmonic units. There's so many different types of heroes. And personally, this is like not my favorite implementation, especially compared to Rearmed Heroes. Okay, and with that, that is all my thoughts on this banner. I'm really interested to see what everybody else thinks of this, right? Not only the units on the banner, obviously, but the new hero type of Attuned Heroes. Do you think this is like really cool and you're really a big fan of this, like being able to offer some more power to the heroes without preference skills? Or are you kind of like not a fan because it's one more thing to summon for? Either way, I'd love to hear about, so make sure to drop a comment down below so we can start a discussion about this and really get just, you know, the overall sentiment on these new types of heroes. As always, I'd like to thank my members for all their constant support, and if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. This has been Oblivion. I'll catch you all later.